Addicted, depressed, rejected. How Jesus found me when I had nothing left. I was a full-blown addict, broke, homeless, suicidal, and completely rejected by everyone I loved. I had burned every bridge, lost my family, my dignity, everything. I remember the night I planned to end it all. But right there, in my darkest moment, when I had absolutely nothing left, Jesus showed up and spoke 3 words that changed everything. This is the real, unfiltered story of how I went from rock bottom to redeemed. Stay until the end, because if he did it for me, he can do it for you. I was 7 the first time I saw my mother cry. Not the quiet kind of crying, the kind you hide behind a closed door. No, this was the kind that shattered the air. The kind that made the walls feel too thin and the world too loud. She was kneeling on the kitchen floor in our small apartment in East Baltimore, clutching a stack of overdue bills in one hand and a photo of my dad in the other. He had walked out 2 weeks earlier. No goodbye, no explanation, just silence. I stood in the hallway, barefoot, holding my little brother's hand. Micah was 4. He didn't understand why Mommy was screaming into the floor, but I did. I understood too much for a 7-year-old. That night, I made a promise to myself. I would never be the reason she cried again. But I didn't know then how many promises I would break. Growing up, I learned how to survive before I learned how to dream. I learned how to read my mom's face like a weather report, when to stay quiet, when to make her laugh, when to disappear. I learned how to stretch a box of cereal for a week, how to lie to the school counselor about why I didn't have lunch, how to pretend I wasn't angry when I was boiling inside. Church was something we passed on the way to the laundromat. God was a name I heard when people sneezed or cursed. I didn't know him. I didn't think he knew me. But I always felt watched. Like someone was keeping track of every time I failed. Every time I let Micah cry himself to sleep because I didn't know how to comfort him. Every time I stole quarters from my mom's purse to buy him a snack. By the time I was 12, I had learned how to disappear in plain sight. I smiled when I was supposed to. I got good grades. I kept my head down, but inside I was screaming. I didn't want to be strong anymore. I just wanted someone to see me. To really see me. Not the girl who held it all together. Not the girl who never asked for help. Just me. But no one ever did. So I stopped hopping. And that's when the darkness started whispering. It didn't come all at once. It came in pieces, in the quiet moments, in the loneliness, in the ache that never left. It told me I wasn't enough, that I was invisible, that I was broken beyond repair. And I believed it. I believed it for years. Until the night everything collapsed. But before I tell you about that night, you need to understand something. I didn't become an addict because I was weak. I became an addict because I was tired of being strong. And I didn't lose everything because I was reckless. I lost everything because I was trying to survive. I didn't wake up one day and decide to destroy my life. It happened slowly, quietly, like a leak under the floorboards until one day everything collapsed. By high school, I had mastered the art of invisibility. I was the girl who smiled too much, laughed too loud, and never let anyone see behind the curtain. I was on the honor roll. I volunteered at the library. I helped Micah with his homework, but inside I was unraveling. I started sneaking out at night. At first, it was just to breathe, to escape the suffocating silence of our apartment. But then I met Kayla, older, wild, magnetic. She had this way of making me feel seen. She introduced me to weed, then pills. Just to take the edge off, she said. The edge never left. It just got sharper. I told myself I was still in control. I still made it to class. I still came home. But I was slipping. I started lying to my mom, stealing from her purse, skipping school. I watched the disappointment in her eyes grow like a shadow. But I couldn't stop. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't feel numb. I felt something, even if it was fake. It was the night before my high school graduation. Micah had made me a card out of construction paper. My mom had saved up for weeks to buy me a white dress. She laid it on my bed with a note. "I'm proud of you. No matter what, love, Mom. But I never wore that dress. I never walked across that stage. Because that night, I overdosed in a stranger's bathroom. I don't remember much, just flashes, a red Solo cup, a line of something I couldn't pronounce, laughter that turned into screaming, then darkness. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed. My mom was sitting in the corner, her face pale, her hands shaking. She didn't say a word. She just looked at me like she didn't recognize me. And maybe she didn't. Because I didn't recognize myself either. I wanted to say I was sorry. I wanted to promise I'd change. But the words got stuck in my throat, so I just turned my face to the wall and pretended to sleep. That was the night something in her broke. And something in me hardened. After that, everything moved fast. I left home 2 weeks later, told my mom I needed space. What I really needed was freedom, to fall apart without anyone watching. I couch surfed, slept in my car, got a job at a diner in Richmond, but I barely showed up. I was chasing highs, chasing numbness, chasing anything that would make me forget who I used to be. I burned every bridge I had. Micah stopped texting. My mom blocked my number. Kayla disappeared after she got arrested. I was alone. And the loneliness was loud. I remember one night, I was walking down Broad Street in the rain, soaked to the bone, stomach growling, shoes falling apart. I passed a church with a sign that said, "Come as you are." I stood there for a long time. But I didn't go in. Because I didn't believe it. I didn't believe anyone, especially God, wanted me as I was. It was a Thursday afternoon. I was in a motel room in Greensboro, curled up on a stained mattress coming down hard. My head was pounding. My body ached. I hadn't eaten in 3 days. My phone rang. I almost didn't answer. But something told me to pick up. It was Micah. His voice was quiet, shaky. "Alana, Mom's in the ICU. She collapsed at work. They think it's her heart." I sat up dizzy. "Is she?" "She's asking for you." Silence. "Please," he whispered. "She keeps saying your name." I wanted to go, I wanted to run to her, but I couldn't move. I was too ashamed, too broken, too far gone. I hung up, and then I screamed. I screamed until my throat bled, until my fists were raw from punching the wall, until I collapsed on the floor, sobbing, choking, begging the silence to answer. That was the moment I realized. I had lost everything, and I didn't know how to get it back. I stared at the pregnancy test for what felt like hours. 2 pink lines. I was 23, homeless, addicted, and now pregnant. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was the only sound I could make that didn't feel like screaming. The father was a guy named Trey. We'd been crashing in the same abandoned house in Raleigh. He had a crooked smile and a temper that scared me. He said he loved me once, right before he shoved me into a wall for taking the last hit. I didn't tell him. I didn't tell anyone. I just sat there, in that rotting bathroom, holding the test like it was a death sentence. Because in my world it was. I don't remember walking into the clinic. I just remember the cold. The way the nurse didn't look me in the eye. The way the walls were too white, too clean, like they were trying to erase what was about to happen. I told myself I had no choice. I couldn't even feed myself. I was barely alive. How could I bring a child into this? But deep down I knew. I knew I was making a decision I'd never be able to undo. Afterward, I sat in the recovery room, numb. The nurse handed me a ginger ale and a heating pad. I stared at the floor. I didn't cry. Not then. But that night, back in the shelter, I curled into a ball and whispered, "I'm sorry," over and over until I fell asleep. It was 2:13 a.m. when the cops kicked in the door. I was staying with a girl named Lexi in a rundown apartment in Durham. She was dealing. I was using. We thought we were invisible. We weren't. They found pills, cash, a stolen laptop. I was too high to understand what was happening. I remember the cold metal of the handcuffs, The officer reading my rights. Lexi screaming. I spent 48 hours in county jail. No one came for me. No one even knew I was there. I shared a cell with a woman named Denise. She was in for assault. She had a cross tattooed on her wrist. She asked me if I believed in God. I told her no. She looked at me and said, "That's okay. He still believes in you." I laughed in her face. But her words followed me. When I got out, I called the only person who hadn't blocked me yet, Kayla. She picked me up in a beat-up Honda, chewing gum and blasting music like nothing had changed. I should have known better. She let me crash at her place in Charlotte, said she was clean, said she was working at a diner, said she missed me. None of it was true. 3 nights in, I woke up to find my backpack gone. My ID, my last $40, the necklace Micah gave me when I turned 16, all gone. Kayla was gone too. She left a note on the counter. "Sorry, babe, I had to, you understand." I didn't. I still don't. That betrayal cut deeper than any overdose. Because she was the last person I thought would leave me. I found a cracked mirror in the alley behind the shelter. I picked it up and stared at my reflection. My face was hollow, my eyes were lifeless, my lips were chapped, my skin was bruised. I didn't recognize the girl staring back. I whispered, "What happened to you?" And for the first time, I didn't have an answer. I sat there for hours, holding that mirror like it was a window to a life I'd lost. I thought about the baby I never met. I thought about my mom in the ICU. I thought about Micah's voice on the phone. And I thought about Denise's words in that jail cell. "He still believes in you." I didn't believe her. But I wanted to. God, I wanted to. I hadn't eaten in 4 days. My stomach was a hollow drum, echoing with every step I took down the cracked sidewalk of South Tryon Street in Charlotte. I was dizzy, my vision blurry, my lips split from dehydration. I was looking for a fix or a way out. I didn't care which came first. That's when I saw the church again. Same one I passed months ago, same sign, "Come as you are." But this time, there was someone sitting on the steps. An older man, black hoodie, gray beard, eyes like fire and mercy all at once. "You look tired," he said. I froze. He patted the step beside him. "Sit, I won't bite." I sat. We didn't talk for a while, just silence. Then he said, "You think God's done with you?" I didn't answer. He looked at me. "He's not." I wanted to believe him, but I couldn't. So I stood up and walked away. But his words followed me like a shadow. I found a pen in the bottom of my bag, a crumpled receipt. I sat on the curb outside a 7-Eleven and started writing. "Dear Mom, I'm sorry for everything, for leaving, for lying, for not coming when you needed me. I don't know if you're still alive. I don't know if you'd even want to see me, but I miss you. I miss the way you used to sing while cooking. I miss the way you held my hand when I was scared. I'm not okay, but I want to be. Love, Alana." I folded it, held it to my chest. But I never mailed it. Because I didn't know where she was. Or if she was even still breathing. I ran into Denise again. I was walking out of a soup kitchen when I heard someone shout, "Hey, jailbird." I turned. There she was, same cross tattoo, same fire in her eyes. She hugged me like we were sisters. "I've been praying for you," she said. I laughed. "Why?" "Because I see you," she said, "and I know what it's like to think you're too far gone." She invited me to a women's group at her church. I told her I'd think about it. But I didn't go. I wasn't ready to be seen. Not yet. I met Marcus at a bus stop. He was charming, clean-cut, said he used to be a youth pastor, said he could help me get back on my feet. He bought me dinner, let me crash at his place, gave me clean clothes, told me I was beautiful. For the first time in years, I felt safe. Until the night he locked the door. Until the night he said, "You owe me." I tried to run. He laughed. "You think anyone else is gonna take you in? You're trash, Alana. You're mine now." I stayed. because I didn't know where else to go. I don't remember what I took. Just that I wanted to sleep. Forever. I was tired of being used, tired of being invisible, tired of being alive. I laid on the floor of Marcus's apartment, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the darkness to take me. But it didn't. Instead, I woke up in a hospital bed. Again. This time, there was no one in the corner. No Mom. No Micah. Just a nurse with tired eyes and a clipboard. "You're lucky," she said. "Another hour and you wouldn't have made it." I didn't feel lucky. I felt cursed. Why wouldn't God just let me die? Why did he keep pulling me back? The hospital discharged me with a pamphlet, a plastic bag of my clothes, and a warning. "Next time, you might not wake up." I didn't care. I walked out into the cold Charlotte air, numb. I had nowhere to go, no one to call. I sat in the ER waiting room for hours, pretending to wait for someone who wasn't coming. That's when she sat beside me. She was maybe in her 50s, worn face, kind eyes. She didn't ask what I was doing there. She just handed me a cup of coffee and said, "You look like someone who needs a second chance." I stared at her. She smiled. "My name's Miss Evelyn. I run a women's shelter on the east side. You can come if you want, no pressure." She stood, handed me a card, and walked away. I didn't follow her. Not that night. But I kept the card. 3 days later, I was sitting behind a dumpster, eating half a granola bar I found in a trash bag, when my phone rang. Micah. I almost didn't answer. But something in me needed to hear his voice. "Alana," he said, his voice tight. "She's gone." I couldn't breathe. Mom passed away this morning. I dropped the phone. The world spun. I screamed, loud, ugly, animalistic. I had missed my chance. I never got to say I was sorry, never got to hold her hand, never got to tell her I was trying. I curled into a ball on the pavement and sobbed until my body gave out. That night, I didn't sleep. I just stared at the sky and whispered, "Why, God? Why now?" But heaven was silent. I didn't go to the funeral. Micah didn't invite me. I don't blame him. I found a live stream link online, watched it from a public library computer. My hands trembled as I saw her casket, her favorite blue dress, the white lilies. Micah stood at the podium, voice shaking. "My mom loved hard, she prayed harder, and she never gave up on my sister even when the rest of us did." I broke. Right there in the library. Ugly, gasping sobs. A librarian asked me to leave. I walked out into the rain, soaked and shaking, and screamed at the sky. "Where were you, God? Where were you when she needed you, when I needed you?" Still no answer. Just rain. 2 days later, I went back to the hospital. Not for help. Just to sit. I found the same waiting room, same chair, same silence. That's when the receptionist walked over. "Are you Alana?" I nodded, confused. She handed me an envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter. "Alana, I don't know your story, but I know pain. I know what it's like to feel forgotten. I know what it's like to want to disappear. But I also know this. Jesus still finds people in the dark. He found me. He'll find you too. Miss Evelyn." I stared at the words until they blurred. Then I stood up. And I walked. Not to a dealer. Not to a shelter. But to the address on the card she gave me. I didn't know it yet. But I was walking toward the beginning of the end. The end of who I used to be. And the beginning of who I was about to become. I stood outside the shelter for almost an hour. Miss Evelyn's card was crumpled in my hand, damp from sweat and rain. The building was old but clean, with a faded mural of a tree painted on the side. "The Refuge House," it read, underneath, "Beauty for Ashes." I almost turned around. But something, maybe desperation, maybe grace, made me knock. The door opened. Miss Evelyn stood there, apron on, flower on her hands. She didn't flinch, didn't ask questions. She just looked at me and said, "You hungry?" I nodded. She stepped aside. And for the first time in years, a door didn't slam in my face. They gave me a room. It wasn't much, just a twin bed, a dresser, and a window that looked out over the parking lot. But to me, it felt like a palace. There was a folded blue blanket on the bed, soft, clean. It smelled like lavender. I sat on the edge of the mattress and cried. Not the angry, hopeless sobs I was used to. These tears were different. They were quiet, grateful, scared. Because for the first time in a long time, I felt safe. And I didn't know what to do with that. It was my third night at the shelter when I heard someone call my name. I turned. Micah. He was standing in the hallway, taller than I remembered, older, his eyes tired but soft. "I volunteer here sometimes," he said. "Miss Evelyn told me you were here." I didn't know what to say. He walked toward me slowly, like I might disappear. Then he hugged me. Tight. I broke. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I know," he said. "I never stopped praying for you." We sat on the floor of the hallway for an hour, just breathing. And for the first time, I believed maybe I wasn't too far gone. Miss Evelyn handed me a journal. "Write it out," she said. "All of it. The ugly, the broken, the stuff you swore you'd never say out loud." I didn't want to. But that night, I opened it. And I wrote. I wrote about the abortion. About Trey. About the overdose. About the baby I never named. About the mirror behind the dumpster. About the letter I never sent. I wrote until my hand cramped and my heart cracked open. And somewhere between the ink and the pain, I felt something shift. Not everything, but something. Like the first breath after being underwater too long. Like the first light after a long, dark night. I didn't know it yet, but healing had begun. It started with a hallway. Endless, dim, the kind of place where sound disappears and time forgets to move. I was barefoot, walking slowly, my fingers grazing the cold, cracked walls. The air was thick, like fog and silence had made a pact to suffocate me. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I had to keep walking. Doors lined the corridor, some open, some bolted shut. Behind one, I heard my mother's voice, soft and distant, singing the lullaby she used to hum when I was little. Behind another, I heard Micah crying, then Kayla's laughter, then the sound of my own voice screaming. I covered my ears. "Make it stop," I whispered. That's when I saw the door at the end of the hall. It was glowing. Not with fire. With peace. I walked toward it trembling. When I opened it, I stepped into a field. Golden, endless. The sky was lavender and gold, like the sun was rising and setting at the same time. The wind was warm. The air smelled like rain and something holy. And there he was, standing in the middle of the field. Jesus. I didn't see his face clearly, but I knew it was him. Not because of a robe or a crown or anything I could describe, but because the moment I saw him, every ache in my soul went still. I fell to my knees. "I'm sorry," I sobbed. "I've done everything wrong. I've ruined everything. I don't deserve you." He knelt beside me. And when he touched my shoulder, I felt it. The shame, the guilt, the weight I'd carried for years, it lifted. Like it had never been there. He looked at me, not with disappointment, but with love so fierce it broke me open. "I never left you," he said. "Not once." I wept. "I killed my baby," I whispered. "I chose death. I chose drugs. I chose everything but you." He reached for my hand. "I chose you," he said. And then he pulled me into his arms. And I felt it. Forgiveness. Not the kind you earn. The kind that finds you when you're still bleeding. The kind that wraps you in mercy and calls you daughter. The kind that says, "You are mine." I woke up gasping. Tears soaked my pillow, my chest heaved, but I wasn't afraid. I was free. I dropped to my knees beside the bed, still trembling, and whispered the only words I had. Jesus, I'm yours. And I meant it. The next morning, I told Miss Evelyn everything. She didn't blink, she just smiled and said, "That's how he comes, when we're finally still enough to hear him." She helped me enroll in a 12-week rehabilitation program through the shelter. Detox was brutal. Therapy cracked me open. I had to face the abortion, the betrayal, the overdose. I had to forgive people who never said sorry and forgive myself for things I thought were unforgivable. But I wasn't doing it alone. Jesus was with me. Every step, every tear, every breath. He didn't just visit me in a dream. He stayed. And that changed everything. It's strange how healing doesn't feel like fireworks. It feels like waking up and realizing you're not afraid of the morning anymore. It feels like brushing your teeth in a mirror you used to avoid. It feels like walking past the places that once broke you and not flinching. It's been 14 months since the dream. 14 months since Jesus met me in that golden field and called me his. I still remember the way his voice felt, like thunder wrapped in honey, like truth that didn't shame me but set me free. Since then, I've finished rehab. I've stayed clean. I've started leading a small group at the refuge house for women like me, women who have been used, discarded, addicted, forgotten, women who think they're too far gone. I tell them what I now know in my bones. You're never too far for grace to find you. Micah and I talk every week. He's in college now, studying social work. He says he wants to help kids like we were. Sometimes we sit on the porch and talk about Mom. We cry, we laugh, we remember her prayers. I think they're what carried me through. I still have the journal Miss Evelyn gave me. It's full now, pages of pain, yes, but also pages of praise. Scriptures, prayers, dreams. I even wrote a letter to the baby I lost. I named her Grace. Because that's what God gave me. I'm not the same girl who begged for death behind a dumpster. I'm not the girl who disappeared. I'm the girl who came back. Because Jesus came for me first. He walked into my nightmare and turned it into a testimony. He didn't wait for me to get clean. He didn't wait for me to be worthy. He came when I was at my worst and called me his. And now I tell everyone. Jesus still walks into rooms. Even the darkest ones. Even yours. Even now. Last week, I stood in front of a room full of women at the refuge house and told my story for the first time. I told them about the overdose, the abortion, the betrayal, the mirror, the dream. I told them about the God who chased me down when I was running. The God who whispered my name when I couldn't hear anything else. The God who said, "I choose you," when I thought I was unchosen. And when I finished, a young girl in the back, maybe 19, hollow eyes, trembling hands, stood up and said, "Can he really forgive me?" I walked over to her, held her hands, and said, "He already has." She broke, and I held her while she wept. Because that's what Jesus does. He doesn't just heal us. He uses us to heal others. My name is Alana, and my story is proof. God still does miracles. If you're walking through your own darkness, don't walk alone. Share this story. Let someone know you're hurting. Reach out, ask for help. Because heaven is closer than you think. Jesus is still in the business of finding the lost and healing the shattered. He found me when I had nothing left. He'll find you too. Not because you're perfect, but because he's faithful. Not because you deserve it, but because grace doesn't work that way. He doesn't wait for you to clean up. He walks into your mess and calls you his. So if you're reading this and you feel like you're too far gone, like you've burned too many bridges, made too many mistakes, hurt too many people, I'm here to tell you. You're not. Jesus still walks into rooms. Even the darkest ones. Even yours. Even now. Subscribe to this channel. There's more hope coming. And remember, no matter where you are, no matter what you've done, heaven is closer than you think. because God still does miracles. And you might be the next one.